Have you experienced those times when you're having a conversation with someone or you're making a presentation and you get that head tilt of sort of, what are you talking about? Or that query in the face that you know something's not landing. As a friend of mine says, you're not getting what I'm laying down. And that was a phrase that sort of I picked up on. And that was one that we used years ago. But I said, it's actually true for what it is that I'm doing with these TransMedia videos that I share on Tuesdays. And I said, okay, where would that apply? And I started thinking some of the conversations I've been having. And all of a sudden, the one that really presented itself was around what do I mean by media? Because from a transmedia point of view, I've been sharing a lot across different media channels, social media channels, presentation media channels, Substack, Medium, YouTube, these kind of things. And then I said, well, hang on a minute. There's different aspects of Medium, even down to, are you choosing the correct digital format for your media? And I said, that might be one of the things that was going on. Went and chatted to those people who gave me that sort of look. Sure enough, I had missed a couple of things. So I said, okay, what would you like me to chat about? And I got a couple of responses. And then I thought through a little bit more and I came up with my own. So I have 5 that I'd like to share with you. I'm following that pattern of transmedia and 5. But I think the one that ties it all together, and I'm not going to count it as one of the 5, the idea of safety, the mental, emotional, soluble safety of doing this legacy work and finding the media approach that works for you. And when you listen to these 5, you might go, oh, okay, I can modify this, or I hadn't thought of that one. So let's get into it and see where we get to. The first one that I would share is around when the physical object meets the digital format. You might have something that is of great meaning, like my hat or my staff that's over there. And I'm going to go, okay, that's a physical object, but how do I put it into a digital story? Now, I could write about it, take a picture, I could speak about it, shoot a video. So there's different media aspects here to give that physical object a place, a space for it to unfold with the story that I can share with it. And I thought, that's kind of neat. I hadn't remembered that component, and that's what a friend of mine shared when he was watching my videos and saw my hat and said, what's the hat about? Because I've never realized that you had that hat. And I said, well, the hat's there from a ceremony point of view. So when I go out and if I'm doing any kind of ceremonies, especially in the outdoors, I'll wear that hat because it has a little dream catcher on the top of it. And it's just a way to remind myself that I could go out and do routines, but what would happen if I went out and did some rituals? And so the story behind that hat is one that it's always there to remind me about rituals and celebration and not about routines. Now, by just sharing that quick story here with this video, that's what I'm chatting about is how do you take a look at the different objects and maybe there's a story there you want to share because you want to gift that object to someone. Now, I haven't figured out who I'm going to gift this one to, but I'll get there eventually and see who I think might enjoy it with the story that goes with it. So that was the first one I wanted to bring out was when the physical object meets the digital format. The next one links to what is the story? What is in the story you want to share? What's not in the story you don't want to share? Or what you think might be in the story, but you might get rid of because it's a bit of clutter. What I'm really sharing here is what's the noise of the object that you don't want to bring forward? In other words, what's the news of the object that you want to bring forward and share? And sometimes what happens is that you might just immediately start sharing a story and you go afterwards, oh, I don't know if I wanted to go down that path. So that's why I encourage, write down some notes that are going to highlight the story that you can grab a hold of, even if you were to look down at the page and go, okay, this is what I wanted to chat about, and then share that story, whatever way that might be. Now, this is particularly important in videos. In writing, you can sort of pick up on it, but maybe there's sharing that's taking place. You might be in a dinner and you brought out one of those activities where, why don't we share something that's important to us at dinner? And I brought the hat out, but I didn't really speak to the truth of the hat. I was just talking about the hat as a hat. I picked it up at a store. I thought it was great fit, kept it, and I have it traveling with me without really sharing more of that story. But maybe I may not want to get into the ritual routine aspect of the story because it may not land with the audience that's sitting there at the dinner table with me. So I would just encourage you, what's the legacy story to be heard about that object, about whatever it might be? It could be a saying. It could be a poem. What's the legacy story that's to be heard that's associated with it? Because that's matching up with the media approach that you're going to use to put with that legacy story. If there's one thing that I sometimes forget to do, and this is the third one I would share with you, is be very clear about what's the why of the story that I'm sharing, rather than just the story of what and how. But why is that story important? Why is that hat important? Why is that staff important? Why is this background important? Why is the story on that little whiteboard important? To be able to bring that forth so that a person who's listening or reading or engaging in a conversation with you really gets an understanding of the space, what I talk about, the background story, the why is this important? Because we'll deal with the foreground all the time. That's what I call the place. But what about that background story? What's there that you would like to share that might be of great depth and bring out the sense of what's simpler and deeper and better and wiser and kinder about what it is you're sharing, whether it's an object, a saying, a poem, a book, whatever it might be. Giving it an opportunity to really give it a chance to say, here's the why. Now, again, don't overdo it because you might get into the noise of why, but there's something there that you could share, I'm sure, about something that's in your life that you would like to get across, but the why is really important. And you may not think it's important at the first, but as you think about it or you feel about it, you'll know that the why is important and you'll figure out how to weave that into what's going on. The fourth one I would share is with the media that you're selecting, video, presentation, writing, singing, crafting, quilting, whatever the media might be that you're sharing the story, you might go, okay, I can be a creative and create that. But we also have to remember is that legacy is about adventures together. So where's the co-creation? Could you get someone sitting beside you sharing the story of why that hat's important? What about eco-create? Go outside and be with the wild kin and sharing something of the story there. What's the legacy hint that's there? What's the legacy prompt that might be associated with nature? I encourage you to think about, okay, there's the creative, the co-creative, the eco-creative. When you think through that, you might go, okay, what's the best media platform that I want to use to be able to get the legacy story across, the legacy contribution across? I often will use nature as a background, or I will use it as the metaphor or the muse, because for me, nature is very much a self-care companion and a living systems educator. So I'll weave it in somehow into my videos. If I don't mention it specifically, there might be an image that's connected with it. So again, thinking through creative, co-creative, eco-creative. What happens for you as you start to create your stories using the different medias? A wise friend gave me number 5. Make sure that you get the best digital format for the curation of what it is that you're wanting to share. And what she was getting at was, we were having a conversation about software at the time, and she said that she had to always figure out what software platform she was going to use. And I said, oh, I remember that story. I was creating a software, and someone was building it on a spreadsheet system that was an old version. And when we went to take it and frame it, reimagine it, we couldn't pull it across. And ever since that day, I went, hang on a minute, what's the format that I want to use? And it was through our conversation, co-creating, that I remembered that. And that sort of sparked me to think, okay, I think the 5th thing I would talk about would be is get your storage format correct. In other words, what is it or where is it that you're going to store what you want to make available? And then have a digital executor. So in your transition and you're leaving it, who has access to that? And that's why I'll point out, you may put up a lot of things on a social media channel, but if you don't put the digital executor with that, then that might all be gone. Or you have to make sure that you download it off that social media channel so that it's in a place that family and friends can get at it to be able to see what happens. Let me give you an example. Is I like to write books. I think you probably figured that out already. What I do is I download 2 copies of it in physical form, and I get an ISBN number, and then I send it to the National Library of Canada. Now, I have a number of books up there. There's a few more that I got to get going and get up there. But it's a place for me to put something that I've written up there, and that is a digital place. That's where I'm using the National Library as my executor. So they're there if anyone ever does as a search for the keywords associated with those books. And I jokingly say is that I don't have children. I was thinking, what could I do from a children, grandparent point of view? And I can put books up in the Canadian National Library of Canada and sort of think of those as my grandchildren. Okay, I'm having a little fun here, but it was the thinking that I had, and I put it up there. So I share it with you. So with these 5 points, think about them through that safety, that physical, mental, emotional, soluble perspective, making sure that what you're doing with what you have and the format you're using is safe for you and for others. And if you have any comments about additions or suggestions, put them down in the comments so that we can learn together. Now, what's popping up for you now are videos that I think would be of great service to you, especially the playlist of the shorts. If you've got a journal, grab them and listen to a few shorts, use them as prompts, and see where you go in your journal. With that, always and in all ways, take care.